The moment the bride stepped onto the ceremony aisle, Vampire King Kaito knew something was catastrophically wrong. Her scent, jasmine and rain, exactly as he remembered from their betrothal meeting, was there. But underneath it, another scent, citrus and steel, similar enough to fool human senses. Not enough to fool a vampire king who'd lived 1,000 years. As the veiled figure reached the altar and lifted her veil to reveal Lady Yuki's face, Kaito's jaw clenched. Same features, same eyes, same voice whispering, "I do." But not the same woman. Not his bride. Someone had replaced Lady Yuki. And Kaito was going to find out who, why, and where his actual bride was hidden. Before we dive into the most audacious wedding fraud in vampire history, where a twin sister tried to replace the bride and the groom's supernatural senses detected it immediately, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This channel brings you stories where deception meets detection, where identical faces can't fool vampire senses, and where true love recognizes its match even through impossible disguises. Now, let's discover what happens when the wrong bride says, "I do." Chapter 1. The Alliance Wedding. The morning of the wedding. Lady Yuki stood in her private chambers, staring at her reflection in the ceremonial mirror. Today, she would marry Vampire King Kaito and unite their territories in peace. It was a political alliance, yes, but after 3 formal meetings and months of correspondence, she'd found herself genuinely drawn to him. He was intelligent, respectful, and surprisingly kind for a vampire king who'd lived through countless wars. "You look beautiful, sister," a voice said from the doorway. Yuki turned to find her identical twin, Akane, watching her with an unreadable expression. They were mirror images, same face, same height, same black hair arranged in elaborate wedding styles. The only difference was in their eyes. Yuki held warmth and hope, while Akane held something harder. Something bitter. "Thank you," Yuki said carefully. Their relationship had been strained since their father, the governor, had chosen Yuki for the alliance marriage instead of Akane. The elder twin by 7 minutes, Akane had always assumed she'd be the one to marry into power. "I know this is difficult for you." "Difficult?" Akane laughed, sharp and cold. "Watching my younger sister marry a king while I'm relegated to the shadows?"
"No, Yuki."
"It's not difficult. It's devastating. But don't worry." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'll survive. I always do." She left before Yuki could respond, and something about the encounter left Yuki uneasy. But there was no time to dwell. The ceremony began in 2 hours, and her attendants were already arriving to help her into the ceremonial wedding robes. The wedding was held in the Grand Temple, a neutral ground that belonged to neither vampire nor human territory, built centuries ago specifically for interspecies ceremonies. Thousands of guests filled the hall, vampire nobles in dark formal wear, human dignitaries in traditional robes, all gathered to witness the historic alliance. Vampire King Kaito stood at the altar in ceremonial armor, black lacquered plates trimmed with silver, his crown a circlet of what looked like frozen starlight. He was striking, powerful, and completely focused on the doors where his bride would enter. This marriage would end decades of border conflicts, would create trade routes between their territories, would establish peace for generations. But more than that, Kaito found himself genuinely interested in Lady Yuki. She was intelligent from their correspondence, diplomatic during their formal meetings, and possessed a dry humor that had actually made him laugh, something that happened rarely in his 1,000 years of existence. The ceremonial music began. The doors opened, and Kaito's entire body went on alert. Something was wrong. The bride walked down the aisle in traditional wedding robes, white silk embroidered with silver phoenixes, face veiled in customary fashion. Her movements were graceful. Her posture was perfect. Every visual cue suggested this was Lady Yuki. But Kaito's vampire senses screamed otherwise. The scent was close, jasmine and rain, the signature fragrance that Lady Yuki had worn to their meetings. But underneath it, barely detectable, was something else. Citrus and steel. A different base scent, hastily covered with perfume. The heartbeat was similar, nervous, elevated from the ceremony's stress. But the rhythm was slightly off. Not quite the pattern he'd memorized from sitting across from Lady Yuki during diplomatic dinners. And the energy, the subtle electromagnetic signature that every living being emitted, was related but fundamentally different. Like a sibling, like a twin. No. Kaito breathed, too low for human hearing, but his vampire guards would catch it. The bride reached the altar, lifted her veil as tradition demanded. Lady Yuki's face. Exact features. Exact everything. Except her eyes. They were too hard. Too calculating. And when she smiled at him, it didn't reach those eyes the way Lady Yuki's genuine smiles had. "I am Lady Yuki," the woman said in the traditional vows. "Daughter of Governor Tanaka. I come willingly to this union."
Lie.
Every word was a lie. Kaito had approximately 3 seconds to decide. Expose this fraud immediately, or play along until he understood the situation. Exposing her now would cause a diplomatic incident, would potentially destroy the alliance. It would create chaos with thousands of witnesses and no clear explanation of where the real Lady Yuki was or why this imposter had taken her place. Playing along gave him time to investigate, to find the real bride, to understand the conspiracy. Kaito made his choice. "I am King Kaito of the Northern Vampire Kingdom," he said, keeping his voice steady despite his rage. "I accept this union." The priestess began the binding ceremony, the part where she would tie ceremonial ribbons around their wrists, symbolically linking them. As the imposter's wrist touched his, Kaito felt another surge of wrongness. Her skin was too warm. She'd used heating stones to try to match Lady Yuki's naturally warm complexion. But underneath, her baseline temperature was cooler, less life force. As if she was partially. Understanding hit him like cold water. This woman wasn't just Lady Yuki's twin. She was a half-turned vampire. Someone who'd been given vampire blood but not completed the transformation. It explained the temperature discrepancy, the slightly different energy signature, the calculated coldness in her eyes. Someone had deliberately created a copy of Lady Yuki that could pass casual inspection but would fail vampire scrutiny if anyone looked closely enough. Which meant this wasn't amateur hour. This was a planned conspiracy. "You may seal the union," the priestess announced. Kaito leaned in as if to kiss his new bride, but instead whispered directly into her ear, too low for anyone but her vampire-enhanced hearing to catch. "I know you're not Yuki. Tell me where she is, or I'll expose you right here, right now, in front of everyone." The imposter, Akane, he now realized, went absolutely still. Her heartbeat spiked. Her breathing hitched. But she recovered quickly, whispering back, "If you expose me, Yuki dies. She's being held by people who want this alliance to fail. Play along through the ceremony, and I'll tell you everything tonight." "Why should I trust you?" "Because I'm the only one who knows where she is," Akane hissed. "And the people holding her will kill her the moment they think their plan has failed. So smile, Your Majesty.
Kiss your fake bride.
And save your real one later." Kaito pulled back, meeting Akane's eyes. Saw fear there, beneath the bravado. And something else.
Guilt.
This woman wasn't the mastermind. She was a pawn, being used just like Yuki was. So Kaito smiled for the audience.
Leaned in.
And kissed the wrong bride while his mind raced with plans to rescue the right one. The crowd erupted in applause. The alliance was sealed. And Vampire King Kaito had approximately 12 hours to find his real bride before the wedding night revealed to everyone that he'd married an imposter. The wedding feast was torture. Kaito sat beside Lady Yuki, Akane wearing her sister's face, at the high table, entertaining diplomatic guests while he screamed to abandon protocol and start hunting. But he couldn't.
Not yet.
Not until he understood the full scope of the conspiracy. "Smile more," he murmured to Akane during a lull in conversation. "You're supposed to be a happy bride." "I'm terrified," Akane whispered back. "They said if I didn't do this perfectly, they'd kill Yuki immediately. I'm trying, but I don't know how she acts around you. We've been estranged for years." "Why?" Kaito asked, genuinely curious despite his fury. Why are you estranged from your twin? Because she's everything I'm not, Akane said bitterly. Father's favorite. The chosen one. The perfect daughter, who gets the perfect marriage while I get this. A half-turned existence and a suicide mission. Who turned you? Kaito demanded quietly. Lord Sato. One of your nobles. He said it was necessary to make me passable as Yuki during the ceremony. Akane's voice shook. He said vampire guests would be able to tell I was human otherwise. That I needed some vampire essence to blend in. Lord Sato. One of the oldest vampire nobles. One who'd opposed the alliance from the start, arguing it made vampires appear weak to negotiate with humans. When did Sato take Yuki? Kaito asked. This morning, right after I left her chambers. His men grabbed her, replaced her with me, and told me to play along or she dies. Akane looked at him with desperate eyes. I didn't want this. I was jealous of her, yes, but I never wanted her dead. I just wanted to be seen, Kaito finished.
To be valued.
To matter. Yes, Akane whispered. And now I've doomed us both. Not yet, Kaito said firmly. He caught the eye of his head guard, Takashi, across the hall, made a subtle hand signal that meant, begin search protocol. Quietly, Takashi nodded imperceptibly and slipped from the feast. Where would Sato take her? Kaito asked Akane. Which of his properties? I don't know. He just said she'd be held somewhere secure until after the alliance failed. Once you discovered the bride swap and annulled the marriage publicly, the diplomatic incident would destroy any chance of peace. That's what he wants, continued conflict so the old vampire guard maintains power. It made terrible sense. The alliance threatened traditional vampire nobles who'd grown wealthy and powerful through warfare and conquest. Peace would undermine their influence. But using Lady Yuki as a pawn? Forcing her innocent twin to participate in the conspiracy? That crossed every line Kaito had. I need you to do something, Kaito said, making his decision. I need you to continue being Yuki through the evening. Retire to the bridal chambers as planned. I'll come to you there, and we'll go together to rescue your sister. But until then, you cannot let anyone suspect you've told me anything. Sato will have spies watching. Because she's everything I'm not, Akane said bitterly. Father's favorite. The chosen one. The perfect daughter, who gets the perfect marriage while I get this. A half-turned existence and a suicide mission. Who turned you? Kaito demanded quietly. Lord Sato. One of your nobles. He said it was necessary to make me passable as Yuki during the ceremony. Akane's voice shook. He said vampire guests would be able to tell I was human otherwise. That I needed some vampire essence to blend in. Lord Sato. One of the oldest vampire nobles. One who'd opposed the alliance from the start, arguing it made vampires appear weak to negotiate with humans. When did Sato take Yuki?
Kaito asked.
This morning, right after I left her chambers. His men grabbed her, replaced her with me, and told me to play along or she dies. Akane looked at him with desperate eyes. I didn't want this. I was jealous of her, yes, but I never wanted her dead. I just wanted to be seen, Kaito finished. To be valued. To matter. Yes, Akane whispered. And now I've doomed us both. Not yet, Kaito said firmly. He caught the eye of his head guard, Takashi, across the hall, made a subtle hand signal that meant, begin search protocol. Quietly, Takashi nodded imperceptibly and slipped from the feast. Where would Sato take her? Kaito asked Akane. Which of his properties? I don't know. He just said she'd be held somewhere secure until after the alliance failed. Once you discovered the bride swap and annulled the marriage publicly, the diplomatic incident would destroy any chance of peace. That's what he wants, continued conflict so the old vampire guard maintains power. It made terrible sense. The alliance threatened traditional vampire nobles who'd grown wealthy and powerful through warfare and conquest. Peace would undermine their influence. But using Lady Yuki as a pawn? forcing her innocent twin to participate in the conspiracy? That crossed every line Kaito had. I need you to do something, Kaito said, making his decision. I need you to continue being Yuki through the evening. Retire to the bridal chambers as planned. I'll come to you there, and we'll go together to rescue your sister. But until then, you cannot let anyone suspect you've told me anything. Sato will have spies watching. You're not going to expose me? Akane asked, shocked. You're a victim in this, not a villain, Kaito said. And I need Sato to think his plan is working. So yes, we're going to play along. But tonight, we end this. Together. For the first time since the ceremony, Akane's expression softened into something like hope. Why are you helping me? I'm the one who deceived you. Because Yuki would want me to, Kaito said simply. And because I don't leave people behind, even people who didn't choose to be weapons. Chapter 2. The Hunt Begins. The wedding feast lasted for excruciating hours. Kaito maintained his role as content groom, while his mind worked through possibilities. Takashi returned periodically with subtle signals, no sign at Lord Sato's primary estate. Checking secondary properties. Guards report Sato left the feast early, claiming illness. That confirmed it. Sato was with Lady Yuki, ensuring she remained secured while his conspiracy played out. As tradition dictated, the bride retired early to prepare for the wedding night. Akane stood, bowed to the assembled guests, and made her way to the bridal chambers with her attendants. Kaito waited another 30 minutes, enough time for attendants to help her change, and then leave her in private, before excusing himself as well, citing the groom's need to prepare. The moment he was alone in the connecting chamber, Kaito dropped all pretense. He summoned Takashi and his 3 most trusted guards, vampires who'd served him for centuries and whose loyalty was absolute. Lord Sato has kidnapped Lady Yuki and replaced her with her twin sister, who was coerced into participating, Kaito explained rapidly. The twin, Akane, has been partially turned to help her pass as Yuki during the ceremony. Sato's goal is to sabotage the alliance by creating a diplomatic incident when the bride swap is revealed. We need to find Lady Yuki before dawn, or Sato will likely eliminate her as a loose end. Sato has 7 properties within a day's ride, Takashi reported. We've checked 3. No sign of Lady Yuki. But he paused. There's an 8th property. An old fortress that officially belongs to his deceased brother's estate. It's been abandoned for decades. If I were hiding a kidnapped noblewoman, that's where I'd go. How far? Kaito demanded. 2 hours by horse. 1 hour if we use vampire speed. Then we leave immediately. Takashi, you're with me. The rest of you, maintain the perimeter here. If Sato returns to the temple, detain him quietly. Do not let him leave or communicate with anyone. Yes, Your Majesty, they chorused. Kaito turned toward the bridal chambers. Time to collect his unlikely ally. He found Akane still in her wedding robes, sitting on the edge of the massive bed, looking small and terrified. It's time, Kaito said without preamble. We're going to rescue your sister.
Now.
Akane stood quickly. But the attendants just left. If I disappear, we'll make it look like the bride and groom retired for privacy, which is expected. Kaito crossed to a wardrobe and pulled out riding clothes, practical gear that had been stored in case of emergency. Change into these. You can't ride in wedding robes, and where we're going requires mobility. Where are we going? Sato's abandoned fortress. It's the only location that makes sense, remote enough for secrecy, defensible enough to hold a prisoner, and officially not connected to him anymore. Akane took the clothes with shaking hands. What if we're wrong? What if she's not there? Then we keep searching until we find her, Kaito said firmly. I made a promise to your sister during our betrothal negotiations. I told her I would protect her, honor her, and value her above political convenience. I don't break my promises, even when she can't hear me make them. Akane's eyes filled with tears. She was right about you. In her letters, she kept saying you were different from other vampire nobles, that you actually cared about more than power. I thought she was being naive. But she wasn't, was she? I've lived 1,000 years, Kaito said. Power alone becomes meaningless after the first few centuries. What matters is what you do with it. Now change quickly. Your sister is running out of time. Akane ducked behind a privacy screen. Why are you bringing me? I'm not a fighter. I'll just slow you down. You're Yuki's twin. You have her face, her voice. If Sato has guards at the fortress, seeing you will confuse them long enough for us to take advantage. You're not a liability, Akane. You're an asset. And more importantly, he waited until she emerged, dressed in practical riding clothes that made her look less like a bride and more like the warrior she'd need to become. You deserve the chance to save your sister. To prove that your jealousy doesn't define you. That you're more than the resentment that's been eating at you for years. I don't deserve anything, Akane said quietly. I let her get taken. I put on her dress and married you in her place.
I'm
a woman who was given an impossible choice and made the one that kept her sister alive. Kaito interrupted. Sato is the villain here.
not you.
Now come. We have a rescue mission to complete. He handed her a dagger. Simple, sharp, effective. Do you know how to use this? Father made sure both of us learned self-defense, Akane said, testing the weight. Yuki was always better at it, but I know the basics.
Good.
Stay behind me during any fighting. Your job is to reach Yuki once we've cleared the guards. Get her out safely. I'll handle Sato. They moved through the temple's secret passages, ancient tunnels built for emergency evacuations that few people remembered existed. Within minutes, they were outside, where Takashi waited with fast horses already saddled. The fortress?
Takashi confirmed.
The fortress. Kaito agreed, mounting smoothly. He pulled Akane up behind him. She'd admitted she was only a mediocre rider, and speed mattered more than propriety now. Takashi, if anything happens to me, your priority is getting Lady Yuki and Akane to safety. Understood. Nothing will happen to you, Your Majesty, Takashi said. But I understood. They rode. Fast enough that the landscape blurred. Fast enough that Akane had to cling to Kaito's armor to avoid being thrown. Fast enough that the fortress appeared on the horizon in just under an hour. There, Takashi pointed. Lights in the western tower. Someone's there. Approach from the east, Kaito ordered. We'll scale the walls. Akane, can you climb? I'll manage, Akane said, though she looked terrified. They left the horses in a concealed ravine and approached on foot. The fortress was old, crumbling in places, but still defensible. 6 guards patrolled the perimeter. Not human, Kaito noted. Vampire mercenaries. Expensive ones. Sato's committed significant resources to this, Kaito murmured. Which means Yuki is definitely here. Takashi, take the north guards. I'll handle the east. Akane, wait for my signal, then follow the path we clear. What's the signal? Akane whispered. You'll know it when you hear it. Kaito moved like shadow made flesh. 1,000 years of predatory experience let him cross the open ground without a sound. The first guard died before he knew he was being hunted. The second turned just in time to see Kaito's blade, but not fast enough to avoid it. From the north, similar sounds of quick, brutal combat. Takashi was just as efficient. Now, Kaito said, and Akane ran, surprisingly fast for someone who claimed to be a poor athlete. They reached the tower door. It was locked, but Kaito tore the mechanism apart with vampire strength. No time for subtlety. The stairwells spiraled upward. Kaito took them 3 at a time, Akane struggling to keep pace, Takashi guarding their rear. At the top, another door. Another lock. This one reinforced with something else, magic. A sealing spell. Stand back, Kaito ordered, and hit the door with enough force to shatter both wood and spell. Inside, a large chamber, once elegant but now dusty and neglected. And there, chained to the far wall, was Lady Yuki. She was conscious but injured, a cut on her temple, bruises forming on her arms, her wedding robes torn and dirty. But when she saw them, her eyes went wide with shock and relief. Kaito, she whispered, then her gaze shifted. Akane? What? Why are you? I'm sorry. Akane choked out, running to her sister. I'm so sorry. They made me pretend to be you. They said they'd kill you if I didn't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's all right, Yuki said, even in chains managing to sound more concerned for her sister than herself. You're here now. Both of you. That's what matters. Touching, a cold voice said from the shadows. Lord Sato emerged, flanked by 4 more vampire guards. He was ancient, older even than Kaito, with a kind of power that came from centuries of accumulated cruelty. I have to admit, Sato said, I didn't expect you to figure it out so quickly, Your Majesty. I thought you'd at least make it through the wedding night before discovering the deception. Your vampire senses are sharper than I anticipated. You gambled on me being too polite to examine my bride closely, Kaito said, moving to put himself between Sato and the 2 women. You lost. Did I? Sato smiled. Even now, the alliance is in shambles. When word spreads that the king married the wrong woman, that a conspiracy required you to rescue your actual bride from your own noble's fortress, the diplomatic fallout will be catastrophic. Humans will see it as proof that vampires can't be trusted. My goal is achieved regardless. Unless no one ever knows this happened, Kaito countered. Unless we return to the temple with Lady Yuki, claim the twins' switch was a harmless prank or a private matter, and complete the actual marriage ceremony quietly. Your conspiracy only works if it becomes public. You'd lie to preserve the alliance? Sato looked intrigued. Even marry a woman under deceptive circumstances? The deception was yours, not hers, Kaito said. And yes, I'll do whatever is necessary to preserve peace. Even if it means being less than transparent about tonight's events. How noble, Sato said mockingly. But you've forgotten one thing, Your Majesty. I'm not the only one invested in this alliance failing. There are others, human nobles who profit from conflict, vampire lords who fear change. Even if you silence me, they'll find other ways to sabotage this peace. Then I'll stop them too, Kaito said simply. Now stand aside or I'll remove you. Permanently. You'd kill a fellow vampire noble? One who served the kingdom for 5 centuries. Sato's eyes glittered dangerously. That would also cause quite the diplomatic incident. You kidnapped my bride. Coerced her innocent sister. Hired mercenaries to undermine the kingdom's peace. You're not a noble, Sato. You're a traitor. And traitors don't get diplomatic immunity. Sato's smile faded. Guards. Kill them. All of them. The 4 vampire guards attacked simultaneously, 2 at Kaito, 1 at Takashi, 1 toward the twins. The fight was brutal and fast. Vampire King Kaito detected the wrong bride immediately through scent alone and chose to play along to save the real one rather than expose the fraud. Now he's fighting to rescue Lady Yuki while her twin sister, the imposter, helps him. Would you have exposed the deception immediately, or would you have played the long game to save the real bride? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know if you trust your instincts or your strategy. Chapter 3. The Battle and Rescue. Kaito fought like the ancient predator. He was 1,000 years of combat experience made him faster, stronger, and infinitely more dangerous than the mercenary guards Sato had hired. The first guard died quickly, his throat torn out before he could fully draw his blade. The second lasted longer, managing to land a cut across Kaito's arm before Kaito's sword found his heart. Across the chamber, Takashi was equally efficient, dispatching his opponent with practiced precision. But the guard heading for the twins was a problem. Akane the dagger. Yuki shouted from her chains. Akane pulled the blade Kaito had given her, hands shaking but grip steady. When the guard reached for her, she didn't hesitate. She drove the dagger upward, catching him under the ribs in a technique their father had obviously taught well. The guard fell, surprised, and didn't rise. Nice work, Takashi said, quickly moving to free Yuki from her chains. But Sato wasn't finished. You forget, Your Majesty, the ancient vampire said, his own power flaring. I was already ancient when you returned. You may be king, but I am older. Stronger. More experienced. He moved with speed that matched Kaito's own, his blade, an ancient weapon from forgotten wars, clashing against Kaito's with force that cracked the stone floor beneath them. They fought across the chamber, vampire against vampire, king against traitor, two impossibly fast beings trading blows that would have killed lesser creatures instantly. "You can't win this," Sato hissed. "Even if you kill me, the damage is done. The Alliance is wounded. The Alliance," a new voice said from the doorway, "is stronger than you realize." Everyone froze. Governor Tanaka, Yuki, and Akane's father stood in the doorway with 24 human soldiers and 3 vampire nobles loyal to Kaito. "Father," Yuki gasped. "How did you?" "Your sister's attendants reported both of you missing," Governor Tanaka said, his expression grim. "When I investigated, I found evidence in Akane's chambers, letters from Sato, threats against your life, proof of the conspiracy. I brought it to King Kaito's loyal nobles, and we've been tracking you since." His gaze moved to Sato. "Lord Sato, you are under arrest for conspiracy, kidnapping, and attempted sabotage of a diplomatic alliance. Surrender, or face the combined judgment of both our kingdoms." Sato looked around, at Kaito's blade still in his throat, at Takashi guarding the twins, at Governor Tanaka's forces blocking the exit, at his fellow vampire nobles clearly siding with the king. He was outmaneuvered, outnumbered, out of time. "I surrender," he said bitterly. "But this alliance will fail eventually. Vampires and humans were never meant to coexist peacefully. History proves it." "Then we'll make new history," Kaito said, lowering his blade. "Guards, take him. He'll face trial for his crimes." As Sato was led away in chains, Kaito finally allowed himself to cross to where Yuki sat, now free of her own chains, being fussed over by her sister and father. "Lady Yuki," he said formally, though his eyes were warm. "I apologize for the circumstances of our wedding. This was not the day I had planned for you." "You saved me," Yuki said, looking up at him with something like wonder. "You figured out immediately that Akane wasn't me, and instead of exposing her and causing a scene, you chose to rescue me. That's..." She laughed, slightly hysterical. "That's not very vampire-like behavior, Your Majesty." "I've been told I'm unusual for a vampire," Kaito said with a small smile. "And please, it's Kaito. I think after I carried your sister behind me on horseback for an hour and fought mercenaries in an abandoned fortress to rescue you, we can dispense with formality." "Kaito," Yuki repeated, testing his name. Her smile was genuine this time, the real smile that Akane's impersonation had lacked. "Thank you. For everything. For saving me. For not punishing Akane. For choosing peace over pride." "Speaking of which," Governor Tanaka interjected, "we need to return to the temple. The wedding guests will be wondering where everyone disappeared to. We need to manage this situation carefully if we want to preserve the alliance." "Agreed," Kaito said. But first, he looked at Akane, who stood slightly apart, guilt still written across her features. "Lady Akane, you are not responsible for what happened tonight. Sato manipulated and coerced you. There will be no punishment for your part in this." "I still deceived you," Akane said quietly. "I wore my sister's face and married you in her place. Under duress. To save your sister's life. That's not deception, that's sacrifice." Kaito's expression was firm. "More importantly, you helped rescue Yuki when you could have fled or refused. You made the right choice when it mattered. That's what I'll remember." Akane's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry. To both of you. Yuki, I've been so jealous, so bitter, and tonight made me realize how stupid that was. You're my sister. My twin. And I almost lost you forever because I was too proud to admit I was wrong." "Stop," Yuki said, pulling her sister into a fierce hug. "You saved me tonight. You and Kaito. Everything before this doesn't matter. We're starting over." "Agreed. Agreed," Akane whispered, holding her twin tightly. "Touching as this is," Governor Tanaka said, though his voice was gentle, "we really do need to leave. The sun rises in 3 hours, and we need to return before the temple guests realize something is amiss." They rode back through the night, Lady Yuki riding with Kaito this time, where she belonged, while Akane rode with Takashi. Governor Tanaka's forces followed at a distance, having agreed to keep the night's events quiet to preserve the alliance's reputation. So, Yuki said during the ride, "Did you really notice immediately that Akane wasn't me?" The moment she stepped onto the ceremony aisle, Kaito confirmed. "Your scent is jasmine and rain. Hers is citrus and steel. Similar enough to fool humans, but not a vampire king's nose." "You noticed my scent during our formal meetings?" Yuki asked, surprised. "I notice everything about you," Kaito said honestly. "The way you tap your fingers when you're thinking. The way you tilt your head when you're amused. The way your heartbeat speeds up when you're excited about a topic in negotiation. I've been learning you for months, Yuki. Did you really think I wouldn't know when someone else tried to take your place?" "That's..." Yuki's voice caught. "That's possibly the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me." "Wait until after we're properly married," Kaito said with a small smile. "I have much better material planned." "About that," Yuki said carefully. "The wedding, technically, it's not valid, is it? You married Akane, not me. So we'll need to do another ceremony." "If you're willing," Kaito said. "Or if you'd prefer to void the contract after everything that's happened tonight, I'd understand. This has been traumatic." "Are you suggesting I'd back out of our alliance just because someone kidnapped me, my twin impersonated me, and I was rescued by a vampire king who somehow noticed through supernatural scent alone that the bride was wrong?" Yuki laughed. "Kaito, if anything, tonight convinced me this marriage is exactly right. You could have abandoned me. Could have accepted the fake bride. Could have prioritized the alliance over one person's safety. You didn't. You risked a diplomatic incident and personal danger to save me. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are. So that's a yes to remarrying me properly?" Kaito asked, and Yuki could hear the smile in his voice. "That's a yes to marrying you for real this time," Yuki confirmed. "Though maybe we can skip the part where my twin pretends to be me." "Once was enough." Behind them, Akane called out, "I heard that." And agreed. Once was definitely enough. Everyone laughed, and somehow, despite the night's chaos, it felt like the alliance was stronger than ever. Chapter 4: The Real Wedding. They returned to the temple just before dawn, using the same secret passages to avoid being seen by early rising guests. A hasty conference was called with the wedding's senior officials, the priestess, the human diplomats, the vampire nobles loyal to Kaito, and Governor Tanaka. "Here's the situation," Kaito explained. Lady Yuki was briefly kidnapped by Lord Sato as part of a conspiracy to sabotage the alliance. Her twin sister Akane was coerced into taking her place at the ceremony. The conspiracy has been exposed and Sato is in custody. However, to preserve the alliance and avoid diplomatic fallout, we need to present a unified front. "You're suggesting we hide what happened?" one of the human diplomats asked. "I'm suggesting we simplify the narrative," Governor Tanaka corrected. "The truth is complicated and would raise questions about security, about twin deception, about vampire noble politics. The simple version, that there was a brief security incident that has been resolved, preserves the alliance without unnecessary drama." "And the marriage itself?" the priestess asked. "Technically, King Kaito married Lady Akane, not Lady Yuki. Which is why we're requesting a private, small ceremony," Yuki said, stepping forward. She'd been cleaned up and changed into fresh robes, looking every inch the diplomatic bride she was meant to be. "With just family and close advisors as witnesses. We'll complete the actual binding and then present ourselves to the full guest list as properly married." "It's unorthodox," the priestess admitted. "But given the circumstances, I'll allow it. The private ceremony can happen at dawn, before most guests wake. The public presentation can happen at the morning meal. No one needs to know there were two ceremonies." "And Lady Akane?" one of the vampire nobles asked. "What happened to her?" "Lady Akane acted under duress to save her sister's life," Kaito said firmly. "She will not be punished. In fact, I'm granting her a position in the new Alliance embassy. She's proven she has diplomatic skills and quick thinking. We can use people like her." Akane, who'd been standing quietly in the corner, looked shocked. "You're giving me a job? After I lied to you." "You saved your sister," Kaito corrected. "And you helped me rescue her when you could have fled. You've earned a second chance." Don't waste it. I won't, Akane said, determined in her voice. I promise. The private ceremony happened at dawn, in a small chapel within the temple. Only 10 people attended: Yuki and Kaito, Akane and Governor Tanaka, Takashi and 3 loyal vampire nobles, the priestess, and 1 human diplomat as witness. This time, when the bride walked toward the altar, Kaito's senses confirmed what his eyes saw. This was Lady Yuki. The right scent. The right heartbeat. The right energy. The right woman. I am Lady Yuki, she said, meeting his eyes directly. Daughter of Governor Tanaka. I come willingly to this union. For real this time. That last addition made several witnesses smile. I am King Kaito of the Northern Vampire Kingdom, he replied. I accept this union. And I promise to protect you, honor you, and never let anyone replace you again. That made Yuki laugh, actual, genuine laughter that lit up her whole face. The priestess bound their wrists with ceremonial ribbons. By the ancient laws, I declare you bound. What is joined here cannot be separated by mortal means. You may seal the union, she added. This time, when Kaito kissed his bride, it was the right woman. And the kiss was everything their first stolen kiss should have been: real, genuine, full of promise for the future. When they pulled apart, Yuki whispered, "Thank you. For everything." "Thank you for being worth rescuing," Kaito whispered back. The public presentation went smoothly. The wedding guests accepted the security incident explanation without too much questioning. Enough dramatic things happened at vampire-human diplomatic events that one more wasn't shocking. Lord Sato's arrest was announced as punishment for crimes against the Alliance, which satisfied both vampire and human authorities without requiring explicit details. And when Vampire King Kaito and his new queen, Lady Yuki, appeared together at the morning feast, glowing with newlywed happiness, everyone agreed the alliance had been properly sealed. You know, Yuki said during a quiet moment, technically we're married twice now. Once to my sister, once to me. Does that make you a bigamist? Only if we count the fake wedding, Kaito said with amusement. Which we've all agreed never to speak of again. Right. The security incident. How mysterious. Yuki grinned. Though I have to admit, it makes for a much better story than we had a normal diplomatic wedding. Our grandchildren will probably think we're lying when we tell them, Kaito agreed. Grandchildren? Yuki raised an eyebrow. We've been married for approximately 3 hours and you're already planning grandchildren? I'm a long-term thinker, Kaito said. It's what happens when you live for centuries. You start planning in generations instead of years.